to another American TESOL Presents Free Friday webinars. And today we're going to talk about assessment in the digital age. We're here every Friday, um, and we're glad to be presenting the second one in 2017. We're going to talk about assessment, formative and summative assessment tools we can share with you, but mostly a lot of formative assessment. And I know it's the beginning of the year, and so usually in January is a really good time to start benchmarking, and it's a really good time to also see, if you're starting new classes, which some of you might, then that's a good time to check where your students are at. And if not, then it's a good time at the middle of the year, um, if you go a full year with your students, to be able to see their growth. And so these tools come at a really, really good time, so that way you can continue to check that growth. I'm Shelly Terrell, your host, and usually I'm on air, but right now you'll just have to see my pretty face in a picture. I really like what Robert Collier says about when it comes to assessment, which is that it's the sum of very small efforts. And that really, really describes, I believe, formative assessment, where you continue to assess your students in different ways. And I think that's the key trick of it all, too, is when it comes to assessing your students on a regular basis, you want to make sure that you do this regularly. But it's not in, you can differentiate it, because if it always seems like you're always testing your students, then, or assessing students, it's not always a test, it's not always a quiz. We have to make sure that it's engaging and it's interesting, because then it's too much testing for students, and we don't want to do that. We just don't want to get it to the point where they're really tired of testing, or where that's the focus and the learning isn't part of that focus. And so exactly, sometimes, like Peggy says, it can be an observation of students at work. So these are a few digital tools with assessment. I do want to do something that Ross Coop, 31.com, and he's at Ross Coops 31. He just came out with a new great book about hacking problem-based learning, which is part of the hack family, hacking education family, which I actually happen to be part of. So I'm very excited to share something that he does. But I really like his writing, what he talks about when it comes to formative assessment. And he says it's a process. It's not an event. It's not an event. Questions on a piece of paper or even an app. He says what makes assessment formative depends on the context in which it is used. And he says it's a planned process. And James Popham says it's a planned process in which teachers or students use assessment-based evidence to adjust what they're doing. So, according to these two educators, a formative assessment is best when you actually use that data, or what's going on, you and the student, and you're able to adjust either the learning process, what you're doing in the classroom, or the way students approach a topic. So it's not just enough to know that whether or not your students are getting it, or whether or not they don't get it, but it's making decisions based on that. Either the way that you teach, your instructional strategy, or the way that students study, the way that students try to understand what they are learning. And so I think that's really important as well. So there's lots of different types of formative assessment. There's self-assessment, where students are able to just kind of reflect on what is happening in their growth period. So this might be something like, for example, if you have something like a digital portfolio or portfolio, which here's another one. And digital portfolios can be summative assessment and as well. But of, when you have self-assessment ongoing, that means that you're benchmarking. Your students are seeing where they are. And I think one of the great things about it is that they're able to reflect and they're able to say, okay, this is how I'm doing right now. But they also say, including in that, they say, okay, well, this is what I need to get to this point, or this is what I need to be able to understand this topic. I didn't understand this area, but I'm very good at this. And so I think that's the best kind. There's a lot of teachers now that are doing parent teacher conferences in which they have the student self-reflect and also talk and explain this process where they say, this is my work so far, this is what I've been very good at, this is what I haven't been so great at, but this is what I'm going to work on, and this is how I'm going to work on it. There's draw response. This is really a fun, cool way to assess. It's where a lot of different platforms, I'll show you, like Socrative had it, I believe. There's Nearpod, where you ask a question and then students actually draw in the answer. They draw instead. And there's different programs that have to do with that. There's actually a blog post that I've done with that for Sprout English, and it talks about different types of drawing tools that are out there, and how you can use these tools not only for assessment but for learning as well. So I'll go ahead and try to find that one for you, but I believe it's somewhere along here, so let me go ahead and get that for you. And then there are digital portfolios that you can look at, exit slips, games, clickers, photo challenges, graphic organizers, and peer feedback. But there's also within the games, I've kind of, and I shouldn't have, but there's online quizzes with that as well. So I'm going to show you a few new ones that I just recently learned about that have probably been out there for a while. I learned about this one from my partner, Jake Duncan, but Shobi.com seems to have everything actually, which is really great. You have here, I'm going to go ahead and show you, but annotations, a discussion, you can have voice notes, you have portfolios, you have assignments, collaboration. You can share with parents, and a great book. The thing about Shobi is this kind of what it looks like, where you have the voice note, you have the answer, you have feedback that you can give quite quickly, and then where it's been fixed and then works. So Shobi kind of does everything, and so it's a really cool tool that I'm pretty excited about, that I think covers a lot of different bases. So I thought it was a really good tool there. Another one that a company that I've recently worked with, or during ISTE, that just passed in the summer, was Ormy Board. And Ormy Board is new. They just launched after, I think, in July or August. And Ormy Board has a lot of different assessment options as well. They have games, of course, things like Mission to Mars. They have polls for students. A poll is a great way to do benchmarking. So that's another one I could have added to that earlier list. You can have a quick poll. You can have multiply and divide. So there's different. You can draw. It has like you could do the draw response too, because it does have like a whiteboard as well. So there are a lot of options on Ormy Board. And you can use this on any device. You can use it on an iOS. You can use it on a Chromebook. You can use it online as well. One of my favorites that I've worked with quite a bit is Nearpod, and Nearpod's on any device as well. The great thing is your students don't have to register for Nearpod. you set up an account for Nearpod, and after you have an account with Nearpod, you can give your students a login number and they can log in from any device. I like that because it's one less thing that students have to register for. You can have a quiz, you can have polls, you can make it open-ended, you can have a draw response. This is one of the ones I use for my book, Learning to Go. It's a template, and so I've used a lot of that where the students fill out the answer and they just turn it into Army board. You can see right here it has a little icon which showing me their responses. Now they did this all on a mobile device, and they're different mobile devices, so it's really good for bring your own device. The thing about Nearpod, so it's great because you can use it on any, but the beginning account that you get that's free, the freemium account, is a little limited. So you can do presentations, you can choose presentations, you can even do virtual reality lessons with Nearpod. But after you do maybe like one or two lessons, you're going to quickly find that you're probably going to have to go to premium because you you don't get a lot of room with the freemium version. So just letting you know that um, and ahead of time. Goformative.com, another, it has draw response too that you can have. It has different formative assessment options as well. And Goformative, I believe, is in iOS and Android as well. Socrative. Now, Socrative, they've grown a lot. Now they have Socrative Pro that's out, so it offers a lot more features, but they have an exit ticket, they have short answers, true, false, multiple choice, and quizzes. So they have games as well, they have quizzes. So all of these platforms I'm showing you, a lot of them have different features. They're not just one way to assess. They're free tools. They have a free version. They support multiple devices and they have different ways of doing an assessment. So that's why I really like these tools because you can assess in many different ways with them. Now, there's going to be some other tools that I show you that you're not going to be able to have all of these different. But it's good to differentiate because some of your students might be very nervous when it comes to quizzes, multiple choice, or true and false. They may be able to guess true and false, or they may have tricks for multiple choice. And sometimes it's not always clear whether they understand or not. So you may need to do more. You may need to have a game where it doesn't feel like they're being quizzed or assessed, but they are, or an exit ticket to get understanding, because your students, they all are going to shine in different ways. And so if you do different types of assessment, you get a clearer picture. You really know, okay, if they're doing about the same in multiple choice as they do in an exit ticket or space race, then you can safely say, okay, yes, they understood this. The other great thing about these tools that I've shown you is not only do they allow you to differentiate assessment, but they're also quick. Once you do find a tool that you like, you can all of these take about 5 minutes. So once you've learned it initially, um, how to use, for example, Socrative, different features, if you like Socrative, or if you like Nearpod, or if you like Army Board or Shobi, whichever tool you use, once you get to know it and your students know it, you can continue to use it, and it's going to be quick assessment every day. You can use it for 5 minutes. It doesn't take very long to use it, and the students enjoy it because it's fun. Another draw response assessment on iOS and Android devices is um, the Answerpad. So that's one you can see here. It's really good if you teach CLIL or math or science and you need graphs and things like that. It's content language integrated learning. So if you teach any of those topics and subjects, then the Answerpad is good. There's Answergarden. Answergarden, you type your answers, so I really like that. It's great for language learners who are trying to increase their writing skills as well. and it puts like a word cloud. It's a sort of like a poll as well, because it puts different answers and it puts in as a word cloud, and it makes the most popular responses bigger. So I really like that. It's really quite a way. And Christina Seraphin, who often shares great web tools, says she loves it as well. So um, so there's somebody else, another teacher who likes this one. Okay, so let's talk about other ways of assessment. So there's exit slips. They're also called exit tickets. They're also called exit cards. Um, so all of these, they're done at the end of class. They take less than 5 minutes, and you review key concepts. And it's really, really fast. So these are always at the end of class, and you're trying to check understanding for that day. Did they understand what they were taught that particular day? So on this one, and then you have admit slips, tickets, or cards. These are at the beginning of class. They're less than 5 minutes. And what you're trying to do there is see either if they learned what was in the previous day, or if they have the knowledge that is needed for the class for that day. So you're trying to figure out you, if, if they're ready to move on, if they're ready for the lesson that day. So this is what these look like. You can use either of these templates as before or after class. So this one, and this is a really good slide share with different exit tickets, which can also be used as admit tickets. They can be used at the beginning of class. So they're really, really easy. You don't even need technology for these. You can either print this one out, or you can just have students fill this out on a piece of paper. So this is called 321. It's three things I learned about today. Two, I contributed, two ways I contributed to class today, and one question that I still have. Okay, so that's a pretty easy one, a 321. Um, you can do it with Twitter. The Mathematics Shed has a ton of great resources for math, but they also have tons of great formative assessment templates. And one of them is this one, which is on Twitter, today's lesson. So you have, if you do use Twitter and you have hashtag for your class, your students can type what they learned today, what they found tricky, and what can I do, or what can we do next time? So one of the great things is, if you do use Twitter, if you just click on the hashtag, you'll be able to see these responses quite quickly, all lined up in one page. So that's really nice. Then you can either storify them, so you can save them all, but they're there with the hashtag, so that's really good. Or you can do a save search on Twitter. Another one way to assess is through peer feedback, and this makes it stronger for your students. Sometimes they're able to recognize the mistakes in others, fix them, and when they're able to do that, then they understand and learn themselves. They say one of the best ways to learn is to teach. So if they're recognizing mistakes in their peers' work that and able to correct them, that means that they've learned how to those mistakes and how to correct them. And that can be really great, especially when you're writing papers, when you have grammar, when you're looking at word choice, when you're looking at structure, formatting, flow. Some of those things, they just take a lot of recognizing, and sometimes it's hard to recognize in your own work if you haven't had exposure or learned a lot about it. So peer feedback is really important for that. So one of my favorites that I use a lot with students is 2 stars and a wish, and I learned from that site that Peggy's shared in this in the box, which is this one, wvde.state.vw.us. They have tons in this site on assessment itself, peer self-assessments, and peer feedback, all kinds, exit tickets, admit tickets, everything. And it explains it in more detail. But 2 stars in a wish. 2 stars is saying 2 things that I think you did well, and 1 wish. I wish. So, for example, if your students are grading each other's papers, they may say, I really like your use of adjectives. I really like your, and they might put 2 stars on that, a star on use of adjective, a star on sentence structure or essay flow, something like that, or introduction or conclusion, anything that they thought was really great. They list 2 of them. And then they say a wish. I really wish your introduction was stronger, or I really wish that you got a star for your introduction, but I really think that you need more supporting evidence in the body. I wish you had more evidence in the body. So it's a positive way of doing peer feedback, because the problem with peer feedback is that if our students aren't guided, then they tend to give a critical eye, um, and they that may not deliver. Their other peer might get offended. So it's important to explain to students how to give feedback. We can't just expect them to be able to do this um, in a way that we would do it. So we want to make sure that it's constructive and positive. Um, there's Kaizena. Kaizena is a way to offer feedback on essays through voice. So there's a voice recording. You can even highlight areas. You can see here me. Here's my student's essay. What is your dream job? And then I highlight, and then I leave a voice comment. You didn't indent. You didn't follow the format, or whatever it is that I'm showing that student. The great thing about voice notes is if you're teaching language learners, then this is a great way to improve their reading and their listening skills, because they have to listen to what you're saying. They see where it's highlighted in their own writing, and then they fix it that way. Digital portfolios are another way to have assessment. This is usually summative, but if you regularly check a portfolio, then it can be formative as well. And that's important that students not only keep a portfolio, but that they constantly are checking it and seeing their growth on where they are needing to grow some more. So here are a few tools. A lot of teachers like Google Sites, Weebly, EduClipper is a great one, and that one's made for education. Live Binders is another really great one made for education. I actually really like those a lot for portfolios. Seesaw, and I've also used Padlet. So I'm going to show you some other tools as well. So this is the way my students did theirs. They kept theirs on Pinterest. So they had my college students use Pinterest as a way to do ongoing portfolio assessment. They bookmark. And then at the end, they took screenshots of it and they put it on Prezi. And they used the voice tool on Prezi to be able to talk about all their growth. So each of these circles represents a module or one of the weeks of learning, about a week or two of learning, and what the topic was. So module 1 was comics. Module 2 might have been digital safety and citizenship. Module 3. So the students were able to reflect on this kind of a portfolio. And so you can see here's module 1, digital literacy, citizenship, and safety, and 2. So what they do is they put in their work. This is all work that they've done. They created an acceptable use policy over here. They created comics, and they talk about it using the voice feature. They say, this is what I learned from this. This is how I'm growing. This is what I struggled with. This is what I'm proud of. Another one I've used, and you can use this template as well. It should be open now, and you should be able to copy this template if you have a Padlet account. Is my students, this is what they did this year. I found it a little bit easier to use Padlet, and I was able to password protect it as well for each student. So the students would be able to go and they would be able to fill this in, and nobody else would be able to touch it. But they not only had samples of each of their work. So here you can see like they had a newspaper, well, an e-zine that they created. They had a presentation, a slide presentation, a cartoon, a comic. They had movies, they had essays, so they had quite a bit of things that they had created. So they had snapshots or links to them, and then they had to write a short paragraph that explained what it was that they had to do. So here, for example, they chose, this is the reading assessment. Here they talk about a Newsella that they took here. Here they have a zombie presentation. They did a zombie apocalypse and how they would, here they say the zombie plan a presentation was a good opportunity to practice our speaking skills in class. I'm very proud with this assignment because our classmates selected my presentation they liked the best in class. So you can see here, I worked with my friend Umberto and we prepared. So they're talking about their assessment. So I really liked it. I put a template. You can see it when you go to that one, and you'll be able to see, what it is to fill out. Your students can use it already, and that's the way they would fill it out. Other ways to do digital portfolios that I haven't tried, but that other teachers recommend, is Seesaw. Seesaw is highly recommended by a lot of teachers. Your students, once they register and sign up, they can use photo, video, drawings, different types of assessment like we've talked about. So here's an example here where a student uploaded, and then on the side you have the different remarks from the teachers, highlights, all kinds of things. There are games that your students can play, which are also really good for assessment. I didn't put all of them, but there's getkahoot.com. On any device. You could have a quiz, you can have a discussion, or you can have a survey. Your students can create Kahoots as well. TinyTap, if you're teaching very young learners like toddlers, TinyTap can be used for that. I've seen 3 and 4-year-olds use TinyTap. It is mobile learning, so but you can use in iOS or Android. You can access other quizzes online that have already been created by students or by teachers as well. But you can also create presentations now. So there's a lot of things you can do with TinyTap. You use your own photos if you want. They have cool special effects where you can hear like little sound effects and stuff. You can add balloons when things get right. So it's really nice. It's a great tool that students can use to create their own assessments as well. Quizzes is another great one that a lot of teachers like as well. You can have jumbled answers, you can show the answers, you can have jumbled questions. It has a leaderboard. Students, the great thing is that with these types of tools, they're very, very similar, but the students feel like they're playing a game. They feel excited to be able to show what they learn because they feel like it's a game setting. Here it also has memes, so quizzes is really good because in the memes for teenagers and adolescents love it because it has different memes. Quizlies is another one. It's a lot like Get Kahoot, where it has different trivia that you answer within a limited time. Quizlet is another one that Peggy George mentioned in the chat box, and that one's a really fantastic tool, especially for English language learners. Now, I didn't mention that tool, but that's one of the best ones. It has many different types of, it has different games and things, vocabulary related. So that's a good assessment tool as well. Videos, there's types of video ones. The one that it looks really good is Let's Recap. This is a video response. So basically you give your students an assignment to respond to. Here it's your favorite story. There's 3 questions. It says here questions 1 of 3. And the student comes on in this private platform. This isn't public for everyone. And your students come back and they share the answer through video. So, and it gives you an easy way to assess these videos as well. So you can tell for language learners how this can be really great because through video, they're able to express themselves. So you also have listening, you have speaking skills that are enhanced with these assessment options as well. So it's not always writing. And it can be really, really great to have students differentiate and actually create videos instead of just writing or drawing or doing a quiz. EdPuzzle, you actually watch a video from YouTube. You have questions that you respond to. It doesn't always have to be multiple choice. Um, it could be open-ended questions as well. So you just choose any video and create a quiz for it. The one specifically related to English language learners, that's a little, which is a video quiz, is ESL video quiz. So you have to create an account to be able to create a quiz, but your students shouldn't have to do an account. And there's plenty that you can use that teachers have used already. So that's really good thing about eslvideo.com. And let's see here. We also have Google. Google has a lot of different ways. Their Google Forms have really, really added so many features for different types of assessment. You can do video assessment, you can do essays, you can do peer feedback. I use Google Forms quite a bit to collect my students' responses and to assess them in different ways. You can have platforms where, and the great thing is you can set it to where it automatically is graded. So if you have any multiple choice, it'll automatically grade them. That's really, really cool. You can have them do surveys, or you can even have them do research with Google Forms. So Google Forms are a great way to assess students. And then there's plickers.com. So Plickers is, if you don't have a lot of technology, your students get these paper templates that they fill out. And it's basically like polling. So what you do is you take your one device, which is your phone, your mobile device, and you scan the answers, and then it shows them on a big screen what they're learning and what the class thinks about an answer. So it's really cool. It looks a little like Who Wants to Be a Millionaire, and you poll the audience. That's what it kind of reminds me of. So Plickers is really great. If you don't have clickers, then that's what it means. It's paper clickers. So that's why they call it Plickers. So if you know how clickers work, and that's a good strategy, then you can go ahead and you can use that. This Peggy George just shared in the chat box a really good site about Plickers by Laura Candler, which is it tells you Plickers 101 digital exit tickets. So you can use that as an exit ticket as well. I talk about assessment on my chapter in the 30 goals is re-evaluate value. It's chapter 17 in my book, the 30 Goals Challenge for Teachers. I know TB, who's here, has read it, so hopefully she's read this chapter already, but she may not be there already. And some others, but it does talk about different ways that we assess. And I think one of the most important parts that I've learned about assessment is to make sure that our students realize that assessment in general is not a way of making them feel depressed. It's a way of celebrating their achievements, and it's a way to make sure that they are successful. And so a lot of times our students see assessment as a drag. They see it as not valuing themselves. They see it as negative, and we want to change that. We want to make sure that any kind of assessment, our students realize that it's not just a grade or a number or saying everything that they've done bad, but that it's a way that we can offer them constructive feedback. So I really think that if we continue to do formative assessment, if we make it fun with these different draw responses, quiz, video recapping, just the different ways that you've seen today that Peggy George says inside the chat box, they won't even realize they're being assessed sometimes. You can use graphic organizers. I mean, there's tons and tons of ways to be able to assess students and not make it feel like they're constantly being knocked off or graded. A lot of times assessment, you can use it for just gathering information and not grading, not adding a certain grade to it. Sometimes just do it just to get feedback and not necessarily mark the student down because they didn't understand something. But another way is to help you with your instructional strategies. If you notice that when you're polling or you're doing an exit ticket, a lot of the students put that they didn't understand, then that's a good way. You don't have to grade that. That's just a good way for you to realize, okay, I have to cover this again tomorrow, and let me find a better way to do that. Let's see. And so you can find a lot of different resources if you go to shellyterrell.com/assessment. You'll see many of these tools, and I've bookmarked a lot in my Pearl trees. So the new recent ones are actually in the Pearl trees, and the slides for this one, because this post has the previous slides, you're going to find over here. So thank you so much for joining today. I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording, but hopefully this really does help you with your assessment needs this year, and help your students do much, much better.